Welcome to Boring Fantasy for Sleep. Tonight, we conduct a survey of the land of Oz through the exact words of its 1900 documentation. We will focus our attention on the architectural and horticultural color coding of the 4 quadrants: the East, the Center, the West, and the South. There is no story tonight, no conflict, and no adventure. We will observe the materials of the fences, the shades of the houses, and the quiet transitions of the landscape. Close your eyes and let the colors define the space.
There were several houses nearby, for the Munchkins were good farmers and able to keep their farms in order. The houses were all painted blue, for that was the colour of the East. They were odd-looking dwellings, for each was round, with a big dome for a roof. All were painted blue, and in the blue-tinted evening light, the country seemed calm and still. The road to the east was through a country as beautiful as any the sun ever shone upon. The road was well paved with yellow brick, but on either side were neat fences, painted a dainty blue colour, and beyond them were fields of grain and vegetables in abundance. The Munchkins were good farmers and able to raise large crops. Once in a while, she would pass a house, and the people came out to look at her and bow low as she went by. The houses of the Munchkins were odd-looking dwellings, for each was round, with a big dome for a roof. All were painted blue, for in this country of the East, blue was the favourite colour. The fences by the roadside were also painted blue, and they stretched out in long, straight lines across the meadows. Every bird in the trees was blue, and the flowers that grew in the grass were of a deep blue shade, matching the sky above. The road was smooth and well paved with yellow brick. Each brick was shaped exactly like the next, set firmly in the earth to create a long golden ribbon that led toward the horizon. The sun shone bright upon the yellow surface, creating a steady, warm glow. The forest was very old, and the trees were huge and grew so close together that their branches met over the road of yellow brick, making a sort of arch over it. It was very dark and gloomy in the forest, for the sun could not shine through the thick leaves and branches. They walked through the forest for a long time, and the road was narrow and covered with dead leaves. The trees were so thick that it was almost like walking through a tunnel. But at last, the road of yellow brick led them out of the forest and into the bright sunshine once more. The brightness of the Emerald City was so great that even with their eyes protected by spectacles, the travellers were at first dazzled by the brilliancy of the wonderful city. The streets were lined with beautiful houses, all built of green marble and studded everywhere with sparkling emeralds. They walked upon a pavement of the same green marble, and where the blocks were joined together were rows of emeralds, set closely and glittering in the brightness of the sun. The window panes were of green glass. Even the sky above the city appeared to have a green tint, and the rays of the sun were green. There were many people, men, women, and children, walking about, and these were all dressed in green clothes and had greenish skins. At the shops, many green things were sold. Green candy and green popcorn were offered, as well as green shoes, green hats, and green clothes of all sorts. The palace was a wonderful place. It was built of the same green marble as the rest of the city, and it was studded everywhere with emeralds. Even the furniture was covered with green silk, and the carpets were of green velvet. The rays of the sun, shining through the green window panes, made everything look as if it were underwater. They were led through a long hallway, where the floor was of green marble, and the walls were of green silk. At the end of the hall was a large room, and in the center of the room was a throne of green marble, shaped like a chair and sparkling with emeralds. Every object in the room was green, and the light that came in through the windows was of the same beautiful hue. The road was not as well paved as it had been toward the Emerald City, but the land was rich, and the Winkies were a quiet and industrious people. The houses were all painted yellow, for that was the color of the West. They kept their farms in perfect order, and the fields were filled with yellow buttercups and golden grain. The sun shone bright upon the yellow stone of the houses, and the yellow-tinted window panes reflected the light. It was a land of constant golden warmth, where the colors never shifted from their primary hue. The ground was as white as a snowy plain, and as smooth as the top of a table. All around were little houses, painted in the brightest colors. These houses were made of china, and were only as high as a knee. There were also tiny barns, with china cows and sheep and horses standing about in the yards. The people were also made of china. They were very small, and their clothes were painted in beautiful colors. It was a very quiet and dainty country, and the travelers walked carefully so as not to break any of the little people or their tiny houses. The country of the south was rich and prosperous. The houses and fences were all painted red, for that was the color of the south. The Quadlings were a wealthy people, and they lived in red-painted houses with red brick chimneys. The soil itself seemed to have a reddish hue, and the hills were covered with trees bearing red fruits. The fences here were as straight and orderly as those in the east. The Quadlings were dressed all in red, which showed off their dark hair and eyes. The red-painted barns were filled with grain, and the red brick chimneys of the farmhouses sent thin ribbons of smoke into the warm, still air. Everything was quiet and peaceful. The blue, the green, the yellow, the red. The survey is complete. Sleep now in the colors of Oz.